And now, ladies and gentlemen, may I present to you our most dangerous contestant in the arena, ELHOMO!
How's it going, folks? We are back today with the finale to our Using Every Gun series. For those of you who are new here, I had previously made a series of videos where I used and then rated each weapon from every build in the game. To finally finish this series, I'm going to make a tier list, rating each weapon based on what I believe to be the strongest and worst weapons in the entire game, with both ranked and quick play modes in mind. So, without any further hesitation, let's get started with the S-tier weapons. All right, now here are the S-tier weapons in the finals. Now, bear in mind that these are also in order from best to worst, best being on the left side, vice versa. So I think that even after the nerf, the FCAR is still the strongest pick in the game. It doesn't have such a skill gap anymore, considering that the mag size has increased from 20 to 25, and the damage nerf isn't all that noticeable to me anymore, simply because this gun is so strong and so easy to use. The M11 is such a powerful weapon when used correctly. Damage up close puts it as the best light weapon for me. Mag size, rate of fire, this thing doesn't just melt, but it's also very forgiving if you miss a few shots. The Lewis gun is still the strongest heavy weapon. I reckon it's gotten all that much closer to the FCAR now because of the damage nerf. I think the Lewis gun, just like the FCAR, is by far the strongest heavy weapon pick in most modes, especially ranked. The XP54 is a great weapon, very strong at mid-range for an SMG, very easy recoil pattern, and a nice headshot multiplier. The reason I put it below the M11 is the XP's identity when it comes to fighting range. I think the M11's ability at close range puts it ahead of the XP, whereas the mid-range light players would be better off using medium FCAR. Okay, folks, so moving on to our A-tier weapons. This tier only has 3 weapons because I do believe that they deserve the spotlight ahead of the weapons underneath. The LH1 is a devious weapon. This list wouldn't be justified if I was to say that each weapon had to be used to their full potential, because then the list would just come down to statistics and time to kill. The LH1 is a high-risk, high-reward weapon, and the odds for most players putting it to great use leads me to ranking it as the 5th best weapon. The model 1887 is in a similar boat as the LH1. High-risk, high-reward. But because of its clunky reload and the inability to cancel mid-reload at times, puts it a step below the LH1. The AKM gets into A tier because it is simply just that gun. Consistently strong, almost too much ammo. The AKM is a solid pick for any situation. Our B tier weapons are going to see the start of a trend here. The flamethrower, a very strong pick for all game mode, really easy and fun to use, but far too situational to rank any higher. The silenced pistol, great weapon, just not strong enough, requires way too much effort to barely even get towards the level of the XP or M11. The M60 is definitely underrated with all the ammo it holds, but the sights are very clunky. The recoil isn't so straightforward, and it just doesn't beat the Lewis gun in most situations. And the SA-1216, I think it's highly overrated. Really not a fan of the gun's rhythm. I like the idea of an auto shotgun, but this just isn't it for me. Just because weapons are in C tier doesn't mean they aren't fun to use. Starting out with the sniper. I love the sniper. I've hit my best clips with this weapon, but holy moly, it still sucks. The damage is way too low against mediums and heavies, especially when you consider how many times you have to land a shot on them to finish a kill. The CL40 isn't actually a bad weapon. Strong damage, but far too situational to rank any higher. Most decent players will counter it with ease. Okay, now the FAMAS is simply the most mid weapon in the game. Enough said there. The slug shotgun could be great if it wasn't for the awful sights and travel time. Not as bad as it seems on the surface though. The double barrel shotgun was one of my favorites, but the repeated nerf to the cloaking device has made it close to unusable anymore. Very unfortunate that the gun itself hasn't been buffed. The sword is a strong weapon until it's 1 minute into the game, and the good players are now expecting you. I like the idea, but far too situational once again. I prefer the dagger to the sword. I think it's cooler, and it actually does ridiculous damage to all classes. But then again, it is nearly impossible to be consistent with it, especially once you get into the higher ranks or higher skilled lobbies. The sledgehammer is iconic and not terrible, and for that reason, I'll slip it in here with the other C-tier weapons. And Getting close to ass here, we have our D-tier weapons. The revolver is just a pretty boy. He's got everything going for himself, looks, sounds, even some element of reputation and fear factor. But when it comes to showing up on the day, he crumbles and reveals to everyone that he has no sack. The burst pistol is the revolver, but without the aesthetic effects. And now, folks, we have finally reached the holy grail of trash in the finals. These weapons still have a number of users, and for that reason, out of respect for the absolute psychotic warriors who use them, I'll go easy. The Riot Shield. Could be fun for a half an hour, but after that, it's a questionable choice. Blatantly useless in any serious sense, by the way. The throwing knives, probably the coolest weapon in the game, also arguably the worst. No range, skill gap through the ceiling, and for what? Even at the peak of their full potential, a hacker couldn't make these a good choice against players who have the slightest level of neuron activation. And the worst weapon in the finals, the heavy grenade launcher. I actually feel bad for this one because unlike some of the other weapons I rated poorly, I don't even think this one has anyone who will try to defend it. If there is someone out there who stands by it, you may be alone, but at least you are unique, my friend. Anyways, folks, I really hope you enjoyed the video. I know that there's going to be some opinions out there, so feel free to comment what you would have done differently and why. I'll do my best to respond to any questions or suggestions. Ratings and follows are greatly appreciated. Thanks again for watching. Bye-bye now.